All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of Reactionary Opinions. The three based bros are here, as I would say, as usual, but we have been a little bit dodgy lately. We have been on a little bit of a hiatus, but we will be getting back to normal very, very, very soon. With live streams quite regularly, at least twice a week. And I have got quite a few new ideas for some new episodes or some new shorter videos. Now, you'll notice that I'm back at home now after a long trip to the Eastern Cape, to my little hometown, Cathcart. D-Dog and Russell, I'm just going to mute you briefly and then I'll bring you back on if you don't mind. Oh, sorry, there we go. So, quite a long trip down to the Eastern Cape, my hometown, where I grew up. But hang on, sorry, I did this the wrong way around, guys. I apologize. I shouldn't go on these long tirades before asking you guys how you're doing, because you see what happens is myself, Dylan, and Russell, we like meet before the show, and we do the formalities and stuff and forget to redo the formalities for our viewers. So Russell, the Based, how you doing there, my bro? Based as always.
No, doing well. The weather's looking really good these days. Looks like summer's about to start creeping up on us, and happy days.
Yeah, summer is coming, but we live in Cape Town, so you know what else comes with the summer, Russell? That gusting, pesky wind. So yeah,
it's still it'll still be pretty. That'll only start coming here in November in a bad way. I just remember, as long as it's not as bad as January, February this year, that was horrendous.
Yeah, absolutely disgusting. Senor Patriarchos, Mr. Patriarch, how are you doing there, my friend?
Doing good. Today marks my second week of regularly attending gym, so that's been nice. And you may have noticed the D'Artagnan aesthetic has been changed, and now I have a fascist haircut, and I'm clean shaven. So aside from that, doing good. Just got some butter chicken for dinner tonight and a nice glass of Chianti. And I'm working on my next fascism video, which will be out this week. It's going to be on basically the regime in practice, life in the regime, and how people thought about it at the time. And then I'll be doing a video on fascism today and anti-fascism, and then contrasting the Third Reich with normative fascism. So this will probably be a 5-part series at the end.
And it's quite convenient that you're also wearing a black shirt there, Dylan.
In a black room.
In a black room.
It's all looking. Dylan, it's all looking very sinister there.
It does. There's like a shadow behind me and whatnot.
Yeah. Dylan looks like he's definitely. Dylan looks like he's definitely in his mom's basement right now.
Yeah, like edgy shit on 4chan.
Yeah, Dylan's like creating memes at like 4:00 in the morning and stuff. Anyway, so back to what this episode is about. So I'm sure a lot of our regular viewers would know that myself and Russell grew up in a small town in the Eastern Cape, amongst sort of a very closely knit sort of farm community and, a couple of townies and that sort of thing, but a very, very small community, but good people nonetheless. And myself and my wife traveled down to the Eastern Cape, 11 hours, I might add, in a car with a 7-month-old girl, which was
a long ass time.
Yeah. But it went okay. It went perfectly fine. So anyway, I want to talk about what I expected, and I'm saying this like I haven't visited my hometown in a long time. And that's the reality is I hadn't been to visit my hometown in 5 years. So it's quite a long time. Sadly, check. My dad says that looks like that looks like a real Peaky Blinders haircut.
I guess it kind of is.
Yeah.
If you think about it. There's not too much on the top though, so it's not too douchey. I don't look like I'd be in an EDM band. So that's the important part.
Exactly. It's not quite the on the top haircut. I was just about to swear at you because it looked vaguely like the on the top haircut, but it's not.
Not quite on the top.
Not quite.
No.
Yeah. If that gets a little bit longer on the top, then I'm gonna have to start,
chastisement.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to start. I'm gonna have to start prescribing some self-flagellation and stuff, just to, cleanse yourself.
That middle-aged Catholicism up in here.
That's right. Anyway, so when we got to the town, I had expectations. Obviously, with anything, when you go somewhere, you expect to see something, and so when we got to the town, everything was kind of what I expected it to be, in the sense of aesthetics. Like, it looked like I remember it. It looked like my hometown. Apart from the fact that obviously, infrastructure was deteriorating. Buildings were a lot more sort of dilapidated and stuff. Obviously, due to the fact that the Eastern Cape is an ANC stronghold, and it is kind of.
I thought you were going to say shithole.
Yeah, well, it is.
When you cleared your throat.
Shithole, yeah, it is pretty much, yeah. But it is a dump. Okay, the Eastern Cape is a real dump. But like my parents say, well, it's our dump, yeah, all fair and well, but when we got there, everything was quiet, everything was calm, and I woke up early in the mornings because, again, I have a 7-month-old baby, and there was something about the place. There was a feeling about it, and it's so strange, it's so bizarre. I was chatting to Scott Tange, and we will bring him on. I've already, confirmed with him that we will be bringing him on in the next couple of weeks to discuss this, because him and his wife have now sort of settled in a small town, and they, he agrees with me that there's a feel to a small town compared to a city. It's a vibe. It's something special, and I definitely felt that. But what I wanted to mention is that there's a couple of things that I noticed, and the Eastern Cape, in my mind, is still by far, without a doubt, the most beautiful part of South Africa. Dylan, I know you haven't been to the Eastern Cape at all, but if you ever get a chance, it's absolutely beautiful. But obviously, the ANC has done everything they can to destroy the place. Sorry, Dylan, what's up?
Oh, no, nothing. I was just saying, I was just concurring. I was saying that, yeah, no doubt, even if the politics are bad, I mean, you can't take away from the natural landscape.
Yeah, it is absolutely a beautiful place. But I made a post on Facebook, and I wanted to allude to it. I remember the first time when I first moved to Cape Town. Coming from the small town, it was a ginormous shock to me, and Cape Town felt strange. It felt plastic, fake, noisy, pressurizing. And, I said this on Facebook. I said the worst thing about it was that it felt distracting. And, we say this strangely now with all the technology, but when I came to Cape Town in 2001 or 2002, I believe it was, there was a lot of distractions already then in 2001, 2002. This is long before Facebook, long before social media, long before all of these sort of things, and it was already distracting. I just felt quite easily distracted by the city. But something else that I noticed about living in the small town is the fact that the community, as small as it is, they still manage to build and to create a community. And when I say community, I mean a group of people working together, besides their differences. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I was chatting to my mom, and we were talking about a group of people and stuff. And sure, perhaps these people weren't, you know, viewed kindly within the community, but if something had to happen to those people in the community, the whole entire community would band together to help those people. And you would just see it happening. It would just happen out of nowhere. And I feel like that sort of thing is not as common, and it's just not. It's not in the small towns. It's almost important. It's almost a. I don't want to say expected it, but it's almost
normative.
Yeah, it just happens. It's almost as if the environment lends itself to that. I don't know if that's a realistic statement and stuff, but it's almost as if this vibe or this environment sort of pushes people towards being kinder to their neighbor, because they have less distractions, they less stressed out, they realize that it's just them and their neighbors kind of thing, so they need their neighbors for support. It could be a combination of all of those things. But yeah, the time spent in the Eastern Cape really got me thinking about living in a small town. And myself and my wife are, I don't know, kind of moving to a small town. It's the 5-year plan. That's I don't know. What do you guys think of that?
Communists and your 5-year plans. I'm just joking. But yeah, because that was an actual thing. In this USSR, they'd have 5-year plans. But no, I think that's perfectly right. And one of the things that you're talking about that I found, because I've had sort of, I have a sort of a different experience than a lot of other people, because I grew up in a small town, but it wasn't really a town. So like there'd be a house, and then there'd be like acres of forest, and then there'd be another house. So I didn't really have neighbors. I mean, I did, but you didn't really see them and whatnot. So my social connections and stuff were much more with, friends, people in my Boy Scout troop, people I met at youth group, so on and so forth. But it was much more of that rugged individualism, but actual rugged, unlike being in a city. And then I came to Cape Town, and whereas in Alaska, you're kind of on your own, but you're not alienated from anything, if that makes sense. So there's no social alienation. It's just a matter of fact that you happen to live in an area surrounded by woods, and there's not a lot of other people around, but you're friendly, you're the people you meet and stuff. There's very low social tension. There's very low social alienation. But then when I came to Cape Town and I moved right downtown, you would think there'd be a lot of more shoulder rubbing and whatnot, and people talking to each other and whatnot. But that is absolutely not what happened. I talked way less to my my neighbors in my apartment building who lived literally the next door away from me than I did with people who lived acres away from me in Alaska growing up. And that's because I think there's something inherently socially alienating about living in a city. And I was just thinking, there was this poem, I think, about like this lady who went to the city to like disappear, or no, she went to the city to like find people and whatnot, but she ended up disappearing, like metaphorically speaking. And then there's also this true story that happened, I think, in the early 2000s about this lady in the UK who she died and nobody even knew for 2 years, and then they like knocked on her door after 2 years and realized she was dead. Whereas that sort of thing would be impossible in a small town, right? You're not going to just die and then no one's going to check on you for 2 years. And then afterwards, my wife and I, we moved out of the city to Gordons Bay. And at least where we're living, specifically in Gordons Bay, it's much more of a communal vibe, and there's a social interaction and just the feeling you get being around other people that I absolutely did not have in the city. In the city, it was much more, you don't want to, it's kind of sort of claustrophobic feeling, and you just want to go back to your concrete box and not deal with anybody. So, whereas here it's totally different. But yeah, I think living in the city is kind of inherently dehumanizing to a certain extent. And, some people like it. And I understand the appeal. Like, I lived there to get down on our commute, and my wife and I, we saved hours every week not having to drive anywhere. And for that place in our life and at that time, I think it was the right choice. But now, I mean, there's no way you could get me to go back. So that's just basically it.
So yeah, look, make no mistake, Brie. Like, I mean, I enjoy living in Cape Town. I do. It's one of the nicest cities. The best thing about Cape Town, I mean, let's face it, the best thing about Cape Town is I can literally drive 10 minutes and I'm out in the wilderness right now. Like, I can literally. It's not that far. It's not a mission. It's not quite Joburg. You know what I mean? If you live in, the center of Joburg or whatever, it's a bloody disaster. Russell the Based, what do you think about all of this that we're talking about?
No, look, I think it's like if you take a small town, right? It's almost like they don't have a lot in terms of an economy, but that economy serves them. You know what I mean? Serves their interests. Whereas in a big sort of city environment with a highly industrialized, commercialized economy, we serve the economy. All right. And, we be just cogs in the wheel. Whereas in a small town, you're kind of like the economy serves you. You take terms to a certain extent. So there's less of a it's like kind of like you being more in control of your destiny. I think that what gives people a lot more, whether it's actual or perceived, I'm not sure, but I think that can, in terms of the way humans are and the way human nature is, I think that does play a lot on people's sort of overall mental and spiritual well-being. And let's face it, I mean, the thing is, it's only a very, 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 very select few in a big city that get the economy to serve them. It's very, very few. You're looking at like the top 0.1%, of the wealth. The economy serves them, but everybody else are breaking their necks just about. Your low end working sort of low end salary wage person is waking up at 5:30 in the morning to catch public transport on a taxi, train, or bus or something, wherever, for an hour and a half every day, working from 7 to say 5, 6, coming back at about 7 o'clock so they're out of the house for 12, 14 hours a day. They're basically serving the economy. Whereas if that same person is living in a place like Cathcart, they've probably got even less, but at least what they do have, they're more in control of. They're not subject to. So look, those are little things that I find it plays on people's human nature. It has a certain effect on people.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I think that's a very good point, Russell. Like the point is that sure, oaks in small towns might not have a ton of money, you know what I mean? But what they have is theirs, what they have is actually theirs. And it makes a big difference, eh? And like oaks will say, oh, but in the city, I own my house, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, sure, you own it the same way someone in a small town owns it, but you don't own what goes on around it, if that makes any sense. So you don't own the environment. You don't control the environment in any way, shape, or form, because cities are pretty much, political pawns and hubs. So you're basically at the mercy of, I mean, in this case, also potentially politicians, all kinds of things. And yeah, I don't know. I think you're right, Russell. Eleutheria, hi, Beth. She says that it took us 11 hours Belito to Johannesburg with a 5-month-old because he didn't like the car. Goodness me, you're brave. Had to keep stopping to keep him stop him crying. Eventually, I had to take I sat in the back and held him. No car seat. Yeah, I tell you what.
We do that all the time.
Yeah, I tell you what.
It doesn't take us that long.
Yeah, Gabriela sits sometimes in the back of the car with the baby, but I'm not judging you, Beth. I told Gabriela. Well, luckily, I don't know, because your boy might have performed more. My baby, she was okay. I mean, she didn't scream or cry or anything. She just sort of moaned, like a lot of kind of thing, but nothing big like that. Dylan, Beth says her husband is said he's battling to find the bad in how you describe Alaska. Yeah, well,
there's nothing bad.
It's
it's a great place.
It's heaven on earth, one of those other heaven on earth places. I was actually sending Dylan pictures of the mountains where I live and stuff. And what did you say, Dylan? Some call it backwards. What? I think you said some call it backwards. I call it heaven or something like that.
Something like that. It's like some would call this backwards. I call it
paradise.
The paradise. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's really going to a small town and stuff really is something else. We did not years ago, guys, but probably a little bit more than a year ago, we did a episode about semigration. Remember, about how these small towns are starting to sort of band together. So what's happening a lot of the times in the small towns is their infrastructure is completely destroyed. So they don't have water. They might not have electricity for 3 days or something, not as a result of load shedding, but just poor service delivery. And what the communities are doing is they are actually sort of basically saying, right, let's all the money that we would normally pay for rates and stuff, they get together, all the ratepayers get together and they say, right, guys, we're going to take a portion of this and we're going to put it in towards paying for our own infrastructure. And a lot of towns have actually done that. They've built their own infrastructure. They've built their own waterways. They've built their own solar power plants and so on and so on. And just to give you an idea, my dad is 75, and if it's load shedding, my dad's like, oh, no problem, just pluck on the generator and off you go. Runs the fridge, the stove, the house, the Wi-Fi as if nothing happened. Same with water. Has tanks, everything, so just pops on the pump and you can go and shower and do whatever you want, and that's something that you don't really see in the cities either. And it's pretty much every single house in my hometown in Cathcart pretty much has this sort of setup, because they realized, well, you know what, we're not going to we're not going to deal much with the government. So what we'll do is we will, provide and create our own infrastructure or our own service delivery stuff. Russell, what do you say? Are you wanting to say something there? Or?
No worries, no worries.
Okay, so something that I also learned and stuff and sat down and chatted to my dad about was that my dad I remember I had welded years ago and stuff, but I basically sat down and did a bit of welding with my dad and all of that, and that's something that people in the city also, well, I'm generalizing here, people in the city, but a lot of people, a lot of sort of city people can't do is they can't weld, woodwork, garden, all of these things, and it's something that that I think is vitally important. It's a major part of small town life or developing all of that.
But Scott, you must remember. But Scott, back to my original question. My original statement was that because like being in control of it, that in the city you just do one thing and you do that, and then you just buy and sell you sell your services and labor, and you get everything else. In a small town, you don't do that. You are the economy. You know what I mean? So your time is spent doing all those little extra sort of skill chores and what have you. But in the city, all you're doing is selling your labor for money, and then you basically hire somebody else to do that for you.
Yeah, so your the 2 hours or so that you spend in traffic, maybe 3 or 4 hours in Cape Town that you spend in traffic, the oaks in the town are busy in the towns are busy using that time to learn extra skills, that can serve them well. Things like, I mean, people underestimate gardening. Gardening is really an important skill, and every single house, I mean, Russell, you can attest to this, every single house we've pretty much lived in, there's always been a vegetable garden or millies or fruit or whatever it is growing that mom has that our mother has planted or grown and stuff. And that's also, I mean, sure, they'll do it in the city, but they do it more sort of as like a fad, like, oh yeah, I planted my own vegetables kind of thing. Not like to actually feed themselves, not like because there aren't like places where you can get like good vegetables and stuff, just like because it's like possibly trendy or something to grow your own vegetables.
Hobby, yeah.
Yeah. What's that, Dylan?
I was just saying, yeah, it's just in the city, it's just another hobby.
Yeah, exactly. It's got nothing to do with a necessity to actually plant vegetables to eat and to, it's just a hobby, like you say. It's just for fun, but I don't know, that's
not a homestead situation.
No, not at all. Definitely not. No, it's definitely not a homestead situation. But yeah, I mean, people will say that that small town life is backward and all of that. But I don't know. I think in all honesty, I think that the city life is far more backward than small town life, because small town life kind of brings you back to nature. I don't know, to your roots, where you actually are supposed to, as men, you are supposed to sort of commandeer your environment and control your environment, and that's
subjugate the earth.
That's exactly it, and that's what we are made to do. And if you can't do that, sorry, you're failing as a man. Like you're just failing. Like that's, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm being a little bit puritanical and stuff, but
maybe a little bit.
maybe I'm being I'm being a little bit too reactionary. But
yeah. No, I think one of the things you were talking about earlier that I was listening to intently was talking about the difference between city and country life. And I think sort of the difference, if you want to sum it up, is people move to the city to make money and people move to the country to live. You know what I mean? So it's unless you're young, like, you know, there's young people who want the lifestyle and whatever, much the same way they love to travel and all that.
They want to be influencers. Hey, Russell.
They want to be influencers.
Travel, travel, and Insta influencers.
Yeah, those Insta influencers, exactly. Yeah, and what you're talking about the economy, I think is an interesting point. If you think about sort of the economic structure of like pick any small town, but I'm just thinking about like town I went to not too long ago, about a month and a half ago, Feltriff. There, they kind of like they build the economy to support themselves, whereas here it's like, if you think about it, you have national, multinational corporations who exist for, you know, and I'm not saying necessarily there's anything wrong with this either, but they exist to, you know, make money. That's what it is. And then people move to the city to make the money because that's where business is done. But in somewhere, you know, a little further out, a little dorpy or whatever, they'll make the economy big enough to support them and, you know, their lifestyle. And that's kind of, you know, that's sort of what happens. So it's, you know, nobody's rolling in it, but unless it's, you know, a proper sort of shithole situation, everybody has managed to build something that'll be able to support them and you know, their families, and that's, you know, that's fine. People aren't rolling in it, but it's a-okay.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's just, you know, I don't know. It's like Dylan says, that people just go to the city, make some bucks. I don't know. The ideal situation would be make some bucks in the city, take that bucks back down to the town, a small town or whatever it is, and, you know, invest in the economy there, because that economy is going to help you live rather than drain you for the rest of your life.
And that's pretty common in Cape Town anyways. I know this is only anecdotal, but I know a lot of the guys from the black guys from the Eastern Cape. I was watching a documentary, and it seems pretty common that when they sort of hit retirement age, it's like back to
before that, long before that. So they'll come here. A lot of them will come here and make a bit of bucks, and then sort of between the age of like 45 and 55, then they'll bugger off back to the Eastern Cape and live on the homestead there and just, you know, enjoy their lives.
That's why in the townships you find very, very few old people.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't see a lot of old people in the townships. That's one thing you don't see. It's a very, I don't think it's not a place for somebody that can't keep pace with anything. You know, you go to Dunoon down the road here. There's very few gogos there.
Yeah, that's the thing. So the gogos at this point, you know, once they reach, I mean, 60 the latest, they're in the homestead in the Eastern Cape, and they're chilling and feeding chickens and stuff like that's what they're doing. And that's
I was looking at it was a fairly old documentary. I think it was about 10, maybe 12 years old, but I was looking at the lives of people in rural South Africa specifically, and most of the documentary was spent on the Eastern Cape. And it seemed like a lot of the people who, you know, the young people and whatnot, they're like, I can't wait to get out of here, you know, go to Joburg or go to Cape Town or something. But everybody there who was old and was like, you know, doing fairly well, what their plan is I remember there was this one guy who was what was he? I think he worked for the municipality of Joburg as like a maintenance repair guy, or like in sewage treatment or something. I'm not sure. But anyways, he worked there for like 20 years. And then as soon as he retired, he like hightailed it back to the village. And that whole time he was just like sending money back to buy cows and pigs and stuff. And now he's got his retirement is largely, you know, just this herd that he sort of built up over the years, and now that's kind of he's kind of like the man in town, you know, because he has his herd, and I'm like, that's actually kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah, it is a good life, really. I mean, what more could you want? I mean, when you reach, I don't know, when you get older and stuff, like 60, 65. I mean, my folks are, I mean, my dad's in his, you know, he's 75 and all of that. You don't really need much. I mean, all he really wants to do is just sort of, you know, he still crafts, you know, so all he wants to do is just sort of go out, do his work and stuff, do what he needs to do, you know, and go play bowls on a Saturday, and that's it. Like, doesn't need anything else. What else would you need? I mean, your kids are grown, they're making grandchildren and stuff. What's the problem? What have you? You don't need anything more. So I don't know. Did you get some guys that are 65 and stuff that still want to be millionaires? You know what I mean? And it's just still chasing the dream. You know, maybe they just got. Maybe they're like the 65-year-olds now are like the Instagram influencers of today. They're just like still chasing the dream. You know.
Yeah, Scott, it's interesting what Dylan said about the guy investing in his cattle and setting himself up a nice little herd to buy and sell sort of cattle and keep going and what have you. It's a pity that there's not more scope for. Obviously, not everybody that comes from the Eastern Cape can go back and do that, or develop a herd of cattle there, because too many people, you know, to sustainably have a cattle herd. You know what I mean? So that's the other thing, you know, they have to actually go to the industrial areas, sell their labor for a while, and come back. And I think that's been going on. Actually, that's not a recent phenomenon. Since migrant labor really hit its peak after the Second World War. That's been going on 60, 70. That's been going on 60, 70 years. This 80 years, you know. That people have left the in to varying degrees. But now, compared to say 40 years ago, 50 years ago, there's, you know, where probably 70% of people were still living on the lands and the homesteads and that sort of thing. Now it's probably only about 25, 30% of people that are living there, you know, and everybody else is in the urban areas selling their labor or trying to sell their labor.
Yeah, I think that is. Yeah, it's definitely been going on for many years. So slight change in topic here, guys. Russell, I know you want to talk about a certain meeting that you went to yesterday. Russell went to go and meet with the black shirts and the racist fascists union, and that's the salute. And Russell is the salute a sneeze.
Yeah, the Cape, it will offer. It will be
Cape
called.
Is not dead.
It is the Cape Union of Fascists.
Oh my god!
But not really. What it actually was a Cape exit. I went and spoke. Well, heard Des Palm speak to a few people. It was quite interesting. But I'm not going to go through. If you at some point, if you find yourself at a Cape exit sort of meeting, they'll distribute a frequently asked questions and legal jargon and all sorts of things. But I mean, the thing is, I wasn't really interested. And a lot of people, when they talk about Cape independence, they're talking about, what about the economy, and then what about this, and what about the military bases that have belonged to South Africa, and what about... Those are actually things that doesn't even concern me. All right. My only question to Des Palm was, you know, what is the plan to get people on board? That's it. The rest will take care of itself. You know, it's actually not about anything else. The success or failure of a referendum, or getting a referendum, on Cape independence is dependent on nothing else than the will of the people to make it happen. Nothing else.
Yeah. So you came here for a small town talk, and you got a small country talk, which is great. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it sounds so bizarre, Russell. That whole idea. You know, so many people don't seem to get and understand that yes, the will of the people is the most important thing. And you know, sure, governments and stuff can, you know, do things to either influence or prevent the will of the people and stuff. But you know, the fact of the matter is that we still need to get these things going, and the only way that you can get them going is through the will of the people. And I don't know, what did he say about did he agree with you? Did you mention that? I don't know what.
Well, I mean, I spoke to him, and he says, yeah, well, look, they are doing incredibly well on that matter of the will of the people. They are doing incredibly well. Cape Exit has registered themselves as an organization, non-profit. So a lot of work has been put into Cape Exit. They've even trademarked the name. They have so they've done all the hard work. They've got a board. They've got a directors. They really are pushing ahead well. But that's just structures. But the real good news is that in 5 months, the people that have signed officially that they want to push for a referendum that's registered on the Cape Exit website has grown. I think Des Palm is now, he says it's now sitting at something like 460,000 people.
Wow.
So, and it's grown, basically he says it's growing by about between 1,000 and 2,000 people a day at the moment.
So the Cape detractors, or the Cape independence detractors, so people that are not really a big fan of
guys like Ronaldo Gous.
You know, I think Ronaldo could be very close to swinging.
He's mad if
he's doing Ronaldo.
If they do get independence, then he won't be able to pop over from Port Elizabeth as easily. I have to go through customs to go to the Western Cape Republic. God,
well, he wouldn't want to come here, because hopefully we won't be actually paying councillors money because they don't deserve to get paid. You know?
Yeah, he won't have a job here.
Hopefully, here in the Western Cape, we'll have enough brains to say civil servant means you are serving. You are not a civil employee. Okay, so you know, councillors and stuff. Councillors, if you want to work, if you want to be a councillor, you get a stipend and maybe a badge or something cool to wear. You know, that's it. Other than that, you get nothing, Ronaldo, because you guys do nothing. The whole thing. You do nothing.
Don't you know he gets phone calls from old ladies at 11 o'clock at night?
How terrible! Oh,
my water's not working, Ronaldo. Those ladies, those ladies in Summerstrand. You know, Ronaldo, I haven't heard. There's this dog barking across the road from me. It's 11 o'clock at night. You know, those I bet you are the calls he gets.
Yeah, well.
Yes, Mrs. Gelderbloem. I'll send over the dog catcher right away.
Yeah, but that's I mean, that whatever. But yeah, anyway. So the detractors of Cape independence, generally they always, it kind of annoys me. You know, a lot of them are like, well, you know, the ANC, they're not just going to give up, guys. They're going to fight. You know, there'll be blood and stuff. I'm like, well, there'll be blood.
So
either way, there'll be blood if you don't go for independence, or if you do. So, you know, if you don't go, you're going to suffer for 20, 30, 40, 50 years under the ANC. That's another. You'll bleed. But you know, so how is that a valid point? Like, you know, I watched on Joe, was it Joe Emilio? Yeah, he had him. They had Dylan's boy, what's his name, Marubane, Rob Duigan,
not that guy.
With debating. I don't know if he was debating or if he was just. That's why I asked. I was like, is he arguing for Cape independence or against it? I couldn't quite understand. But he was debating or chatting with Phil Craig. And basically what he was saying is like, the ANC, who they are, really, they are devout Marxists, and they will do this and they will do that. And I'm like, yeah, and like, what? Like, okay.
That's exactly what Des Palm said last night. He said, well, it's not up to the ANC. Cape independence is not up to the ANC. If we can get a referendum and we decide that the referendum is in our favor, it's not up to the ANC whether they want us to allow us to leave or not. It's not up to them. Get it into
really
your head.
isn't.
Settle that. Just settle that matter. Just tell, if you think, oh, the ANC won't allow it, just don't let that into your mind. Say, once a referendum.
No, Russell, they won't allow it. We know they won't allow it, but that's not the point.
Yeah, but
the point is they are going to destroy you either way, or they're going to try to destroy you either way. The best way that you have to survive is if you actually cut yourself off of them. If you stay there, they are going to quietly strangle you to death at night. Okay, without you.
Yeah, it's like the crocodile. You're hoping the crocodile will eat you last.
Exactly, that's the whole thing. So it's either, the ANC is terrible. The ANC, they're Marxist. They won't let you go. They won't.
But the nice thing about the ANC one of the advantages we've got at the moment, well, Cape Exit and Cape Independence has got at the moment, is that the present ANC government is in such disarray. Something they would not be right now if the support was at 2 million people officially signed up and ready to go, which is a third of the Cape population have already said they want the independence. That's enough to actually force people to call for a referendum. All right. Then at the moment, the ANC is so weak, actually, even though they hold the levers of power, they can't make any decisions at the moment. There'll be so much fighting amongst them that they're so weak. The thing is, the central state at the moment is so weak anyway, and is going to get weaker, which is going to play into.
It's an absolute circus. Like it's just so.
Yeah.
It's such a mess. It's such an absolute mess. But regardless of them being a mess and stuff, they will still put up a fight. But in my mind, I see within the next 2 years, a referendum. The way things are going, the iron is hot. It's perfect for striking now. I say, referendum soon.
Yeah, it will look like I say. Just got to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is, I think these. I don't even think a lot of these people are naysayers in the sense that they want to see it fail. Like, I think these guys would like to see Cape independence happen. I think, but they might be a little pessimistic on it. And the way I see it is, look, let's suppose they're right. We're not going to know unless we try, right? So, going for Cape independence, yeah. I mean, if the ANC does say, yeah, okay, never mind, we're a police state now, and we're not going to let you leave. Okay, well, at least the mask is off, and and we could say we did what we want. We did, we went for it. We really went for it, and we're not going to know unless we try. And we could get shot down, but what's the harm in trying? At least
give it a crack. Give it a crack, man.
Yeah. So again, like I said, I think these people, they may well be right. The ANC may say, yeah, no way we're going to let you go. You guys pay way too much tax, and and we have these military bases, and we don't want Gauteng to get any ideas. So no.
Or KZN.
Yeah, or
KZN. So, yes, KZN. If the Western Cape gets their independence, bro, within 2 months, bro, KZN would be like, right, cheers, Oaks, we're out.
We're also going.
That's what they might want to set that precedent for, like, purely Machiavellian pragmatic reasons. Okay, sure, fine. Yeah. But at the very least, we can stick it to the man a little bit on our way down. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree, Dylan. Like the whole thing is we're doomed if we don't, and potentially doomed if we do. Like this is the whole thing. It's and it's such a pointless. It's so pointless arguing about semantics and arguing about
Exactly.
what's the border going to do, or what about the people in KZN or Joburg? What about my family in this? Stop arguing about those semantics, because the point behind Cape independence, guys, is for us to get independence here in the Western Cape, and for whatever happens here in the Western Cape to sort of brush off onto other parts of South Africa. So we eventually end up, hopefully completely annihilating the idea of South Africa as a country, or whatever's left of South Africa as an actual country, because it's a farce. It's fake. It's not a real country. So it was never a real country to begin with. So let's fix it. This is the only way we're going to fix it. Sorry, not sorry.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, self-determination is the future.
Yes. And it's quite interesting, Russell. You mentioned, who was the guy from Cape Exit that spoke?
A guy called Des Palm.
Oh, okay. But there was also
he's been on Germ Show. I think he's been on Germ Show. I think he's been on all the other guys' shows as well. Des Palm.
Oh, okay, cool. But you said that there was also a guy from another political party there as well, eh?
Yes, there was.
Are you allowed to say what political party it was?
Well, I can say, what was his name? Corné Mulder from the Vryheidsfront was there. Basically lending his ear and his support to self-determination, basically, in a very short sort of. But I mean, he gave some interesting interesting insights as well.
So I think that Check Beth says I'll claim refugee status. Yeah. Or you could just move down to Cape Town so long. I mean, So but I found it quite interesting that the Freedom Front Plus was there, because they're obviously just a bunch of conservatives who are okay with people just being left alone. That's the whole idea, and people, I don't know, like, people misunderstand conservatism and stuff, and conservatism is really just people that just want to be left alone, and it's all about self-determination, unlike those other people with that liberal word in it, all those things that come with all the different colors of that liberal word.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, like I say, I don't know. It was very interesting. Dr. Corné Mulder gave a couple of insights as to, basically, I actually asked him, look, so in other words, what you're saying, it basically comes down to the people wanting it enough, and that's what he says. He says that's what it comes down to. All the other stuff, and you must remember, he's trained in constitutional law as well. So, he is basically, as a constitutional lawyer, telling you that, listen, that basically it comes down to your will to make it happen. Ultimately, let's not muddy the waters with all sorts of obstruifications and nonsense like that. That's what it comes down to.
True. It's exactly that. Beth says, yeah, husband doesn't like Cape Townians. Keep telling him there's people like you there too. Don't worry, Beth. We don't really like Cape Townians either,
Just move out to Houserifier or somewhere like that.
And I've been living in Cape Town for like 20 years, so I'm pretty much a Cape Townian. That makes you wonder. But interestingly enough, Beth, my neighbor over here, is from Joburg. The guy in the corner over here is from Joburg. I think the people even on the other corner are also from Joburg. So don't worry, man. You'll find plenty of your cousins and stuff. Yeah,
Your brethren.
your
Big
brethren. She says, and your freaking wind, blah. Yeah, the wind is horrible.
Only in January and February it's really bad.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go to Cape Town, by the way. The Western Cape's a big place.
Yeah,
correct.
Somewhere like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
good point.
Only thing is in the Boerland in Tilbach, you've got heat in summer. You're gonna have 40 degrees every day.
But isn't Joburg hot as hell, anyways?
Not like that.
Not
like
Joburg at least Joburg gets a thunder shower in the afternoon at least. In Tilbach and these places, it's a whole 10 days of just 40-degree heat.
Worse.
Joburg you'll get a thunder shower or something like that to cool things down, or there'll be some change in the weather. You'll have like 1 or 2 really hot days, but you won't have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hot days in a row.
Yeah. So interesting comment over here by Pet Zoo Film Crew. He or she says independent Western Cape is a war worth fighting for. Like Craig's strategy. I don't know if he's saying you like it or like Craig's strategy. Talking about Phil Craig, I guess. They need now to focus their progress under coloured communities. The quicker we have the majority on board, the quicker the freedom. Yeah, look, yes, I'll tell you one thing, the coloured community is in the Western Cape, I'm telling you, is something they have been so abused over the last, 100, 200 years or whatever. They really have been, forever. They've been so marginalized. It's
as the Jews of South Africa, but without the money.
That is classic. That is brilliant.
But I mean, the thing is, at least like Des Palm is actually saying they are finding traction in the coloured communities, especially the communities outside of the Cape Metropole. So your communities in places like Tilbach and Worcester and Rawsonville and Robertson and Ceres and all these sorts of places. Those guys are totally game because they don't want to change their way of life. They do see they've lived their own life in their own way of life for generations, and they want to continue having their Afrikaans schools. They want to continue having their own. They want things to continue like they know them. They don't want to be forced into a change. They don't.
Yeah. So Beth says over here, unfortunately, his work experience is in international hotels, so city it would likely be. That's a bit of a bummer. She says, okay, I've got to sign off night, guys. Cheers, Beth. Thanks for listening. Yes. And Pet Zoo Film Crew says, I'm a he. Ha ha ha. Well, yeah, we can be forgiven for knowing if you're a he or a she, but we don't want to offend anyone. We just don't want to offend. We want to make sure we get your pronouns correct.
You should use they, them. That's gender neutral.
Yeah, they and them. Yeah, that's. We don't want to get your pronouns wrong and all. Anyway, some news. We will be getting. I still need to confirm a date with him, but Eustace is going to be coming on our show. And then also, I'm going to message him, and we'll see if he's busy or not. But we want to do that Bri live stream with Joe Emilio. Hopefully, we can do it next weekend. Not this coming weekend, the weekend after that, where we'll sit here in my Bri room and I guess, I don't know, talk cuck after a Bri and some drinks. So
and hopefully having a comedian on your live stream from a Bri room, I see a great comedy night.
yeah, I think this is going to be a good one. I think this is definitely going to be a good one. But
Unless, of course, if he like once he starts drinking and then he just like starts roasting us and gets really mean, or like, "Hey, man, stop it! This fucker over here, Joe, hell, man!
Yeah, I've got
I
some.
thought
I've
we're
got
going to
some.
talk about Cape Secession."
Yeah, I got
He's
some
I
brandy
also
over here in my bar as well.
I refer to I call him Eric Estrada.
Eric Estrada, yeah, I know. He does kind of look like Eric Estrada. Eh? Anyway, anything else you guys want to say?
No, I'm pretty much sorted.
Right at an hour too. Perfecto.
Yeah, I think we're good. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, guys. We will probably be doing a show on Friday night. Probably just myself and Russell. We'll be streaming a show. We've got to think about a nice based topic that we can talk about. And yeah, we'll probably, Russell, we can talk about more about, I don't know, libertarianism is Satanism, or, you know.
I think we pretty much said all we're going to say on that for a long time now. We're moving on.
Yeah, I said on Facebook, I said libertarians are the modern versions of Gnostics. They were heretics then, and they're heretics now. But they are. I mean, they are. They claim to have this sort of esoteric knowledge of like the enlightened, you know, like we know the right path, people. You know,
the
yeah, exactly like
Abyssinian
that.
cult of libertarianism.
Yeah. It's exactly that. They claim to be like the Gnostics. Well, they don't claim to be, but they're exactly like the Gnostics. They were heretics then, and they're heretics now. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, guys. Have a great evening out there. Remember to stay reactionary out there, because
God wills it.
God wills it.